And so I will finish the 4 Ps, and then I will go into pricing, place, promotion, and pretty much that's going to button up everything. Now, going back to marketing, I mean, I just want to show some companies that found this success, and it came from something very simple. I mean, there's more than one thing, but sometimes it can be just one thing, but you have to be the first one. And Ballast Point is one of these companies. They came up with this packaging, and that packaging was a killer, and it put them on the map. They went from, 20 million revenues to 2 billion revenues, and a lot of it is connected to the quality of their packaging, or at least people remembering their packaging. Packaging can be not just for the beer, but Gogurts was a tremendous, Pringles was a tremendous thing. So you can find sometimes some tactical directions that make a dramatic change. In business, you can never say one thing works all the time or something never works. There's always exceptions. But normally, to succeed, you more want to be strategic than tactical. So here are examples of tactics that became icebreaker. So I don't want to say it never happens, but that's why I want you to focus on strategies. How to value a business. And I wanted to talk about this, and I'm missing one. There's one that is inventory and assets. That's another thing. Okay, so the very black and white is what is someone willing to sell. So let's say Caden was to sell his business. How much is it? It's worth what someone wants. If someone want to give him $1 million, it's worth $1 million. If you want someone, the best deal he's got is $20, it's worth $20. So that's very important, is what someone is willing to pay. Another way, which is the one the finance and accounting usually do, is they look at the sales and the profit. And then based on this, they decide what's the company is worth. So there's like a formula. Another one is the market share. The more market share you have, so sometimes you don't have huge sales, sometimes you don't have huge profit, but you have a good market share on something very niche. That's valuable because it takes time to build a market share, and someone may want to spend the money buying your business versus the time it takes to build the business. Then the number of innovation, patent, licenses, those intellectual rights that you have, that makes a big difference. Then the inventory and assets. Sometimes you have stocks. You have this many thousand left, and that's also in the value of the business. Then the distribution shares is like who is distributing your product makes a big impact. Are you distributing in one state, one village, one country, one continent? Obviously, the more distribution you have, the more expensive your business. Then another one sometimes is the setting up expenses. Sometimes it takes a long time to set up something. We are using a vineyard. For a vineyard to start producing grapes that you can use for making wine, it takes 5 years. So you plant, 5 years after you get the grapes that you can use to make wine. Who wants to wait 5 years? In addition, the grapes you get after 5 years are not good. That's just the beginning of something. So, which means that, people will be, let's say, 40 years old and they have to wait to be 50 years old to start making wine. It's 10 years is a big chunk of someone's life. And so the setting up expense can be long. And then the last one, and that's kind of the point I want to get to, is the brand equity, is the value of your brand, is also what your business is worth. So this slide, I would not be surprised if you even did on ChatGPT, you will not find as much as this. It's not in the textbook. It's probably in no textbook, but it's very important to look at it like this. I work with a lot of people that do valuation. I work for the 10 of the 20 largest valuation firm, and none of them are actually give you a full list like this. It's kind of funny. They all have their preferences. So the big accounting firm, they talk about sales and profit, and the big law firm, they talk about the innovation and all that. So everybody has a bias. Here is all the things. The one that is more marketing bias, I would say, is what someone is willing to pay, the market share, and the distribution shares and the brand equity. Because distribution is very much the business of marketing, finding distributor and creating the network. But here's one company, Nestle. Look at all the brands that they have. They actually try to do everything they can not to sell anything under the brand Nestle. Why? Because they believe in brand equity, building models and subcategories and names for all the products that they make. But not only Nestle, If you look around you, you have Kraft, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, P&G, Unilever, so many brands. They love brand equity because sometimes they can also sell those brands to invest in other products. So why would you have a brand? So for consumers, it's great because it creates expectation. If you buy a brand, if you're getting the same brand, you should get the same product. It reduces risks because it's not a non-branded product with risks. It simplifies decision-making. Is you buying that brand because you've heard of it. You don't buy what you don't know. And then it has a personal meaning because you use it, you have memories, nostalgia, and that brand means more than what the brand is telling you it means. It becomes maybe an identity that you buy, or maybe it's already your identity and you associate your identity with that brand. For the company, why would you have a brand and why don't you just sell, I don't know, soda? You sell a brand because essentially you build your own equity and you build the value of your company beside the sales that you're making on the inventory, the list I had just before. And it's easier because you have those different products with different brands for different markets. So therefore you can build your market share. You can protect, you can give reasons for people to buy. You can create brand loyalty, people that keep buying your product, and you can have a protection. That's a competitive advantage to have protection because people cannot use your brand when they sell the product. They may copy your product. That's very difficult to defend, even if you have a patent. But copying your brand is more obvious and it's more trouble for the company copying you. The words that your brand has is an association. It's your positioning. So Volvo safety, BMW driving, Mercedes engineering, and so forth. Vent, value. And so what's the brand equity? The brand equity is made of 4 parts. The first part is brand awareness. Do people know the brand? I heard it, I know it, I've used it. Brand association is, do I know what the brand stands for? What are the different adjectives, the meaning of the brand, the history of the brand, the about us of the brand? So that's important. The brand quality is a spectrum from low quality to medium quality to high quality. Every brand has an image of quality in our mind, in our memory. We have different perception of it. Maybe for you, it's different than mine. And it doesn't have to be true. It's just a perception of the quality of the brand. So the more we perceive a brand to be quality, the more we will be willing to spend money. The more we will have arguments to be buying this brand. And then the final one, which is the utmost desirable brand equity, it's called brand loyalty. Why is it the best brand equity? Because brand loyalty helps you to sell new products. It helps you build a fan base. It helps you fight against the distribution because the distribution doesn't want to sell your product. They want to make a lot of money, but they want to make what people want. So they seek brands that have brand loyalty, brands that people are looking for. And so the more you have people looking for your brand, the more the distribution is going to like you because they're going to say, we want the brand that are easy to sell. So brand equity is the combination of all of these, not just one thing. But if there was one thing, what is brand equity? Brand equity is the difference between a branded product and a non-branded product. A non-branded product has no equity. The equity is this value, which comes from being branded. Now, what are the different type of brand? There's the brand from the manufacturer, the brand from the distributor, and then there's the non-branded product. When you're a brand, you can have a model, and sometimes it's really good to have a model. And that allows you to build the brand further. So for example, what car do you have? I have a Mustang. People don't even say they have a Ford. I have a Corvette. People don't even say they have a Chevrolet. So having a sub-brand reinforces it because it makes it even more special. Brands are special, non-branded products are not special. The idea too is you can have a brand that go for a specific target and you can have different brands for different distributors. So sometimes the issue is having one brand is better than having multiple brands because if you have one brand, you put all your eggs in the same basket. And the example here, typical example is Philips. Philips makes alarm, coffee maker, shavers, electric toothbrush, and medical equipment. How could you be making so many different things under one brand? And that's a little bit the problem, is how could a brand be good at doing so many extensions that are so different? Most of the time, people think it's not possible. So that's why it's better to have specific brands for different categories. But if you do this, it's more expensive. When you have just one brand, Philips, then it's the advertising you do for one category. it also gives an effect on the other categories. That's the benefit. Now, what are the typical brand strategies? So you have the flankers. The flankers is when you create brands that are exactly the same product, but you give them different names. So you have like 5 brands of soap, but essentially it's the same soap. Why would you have 5 brands of soap? Because with 5 brands of soap, you can sell the soap to different people, but you don't even bother changing the product. So it's cheap in terms of production, but it's just marketing and image. In addition, when you have 5 brands of soaps, you control more space on the channel of distribution, on the shelf in the store. And that way you increase your market share, not per brand, but as an overall company dominating the category. And if you do this, you have better relationship with the distributors. So flankers is really good. Cash cow is when you try not to invest very much in the communication of your brands and you try to make money from the sale of the brand. So eventually people keep buying, and the more they buy, the less you invest because you actually let them do the marketing, and it's just them, the demand that makes the marketing. Then you have the opposite of each other is the low hand and the high hand. The low hand is you try to, let's say you have a Mercedes company and you try to sell a cheap Mercedes. So you sell the Smart, for example. The Smart is a cheap Mercedes. It's a brand of car, the Smart. So that's the low end. Or maybe you sell the A, Mercedes A, Mercedes C. It's the low-end entry. And then you create a high-end entry. So you create the S, or you create the AMG, or you create the Maybach. This would be the high-end type of entry. Luxury companies do this all the time, is they have a variation of different level of luxury with less luxury, more luxury, more luxury, I mean, it's like a company that would say, I have 2 supermarkets. I have one, it's called Trader Joe's, and the other one is called Air1. Air1, I sell the one strawberry at a time for $20 versus Trader Joe's is I sell a big box of 30 strawberries for the same price as the Air1. They should not be the same strawberry when there's such a differential of prices, but you try to cover those 2 spectrums. 5 brand strategies. So if you sell the same brand to the same within the same product category, it's line extension. When you sell the same brand, different brands to the same product category, and you sort of doing flanking, what I was explaining before, this is the multi-brand strategy. But when you sell the same brand to a new product category, so it's like Barbie not selling dolls, but Barbie video games. In that situation, and you call it Barbie video games. In that situation, it would be new product category with the same brands. And then you have new brands. So it means it's a new category with a new brand name. And at that situation, it would be new brands. Co-branding is you have a combination of the 2 brands, and one brand helps one another. The last strategy that I want to talk about, I won't spend too much time, is a new product development strategy. And why do I want to talk about this? Is because it's a most common strategy which consists in creating a new product. If you remember, there was 4 basic strategies: market penetration, selling the same product to the same people; new product development, selling a new product to the same people; market development, selling the same product to a new group of customers; and then diversification, it's the next step. And then diversification, it's selling a new product, an extremely new product to a new market. So in that situation is more than the combination of new product development and market development is a significantly different product to the customers. You just totally change category, it's a different market and altogether a different production and so forth. So the challenge with a new product development is that, are you making a continuous innovation? It's like a iPhone 1, iPhone 2, iPhone 3, iPhone 4, that's a continuous. Or are you making a total disruption? Obviously, disruption are possibly more profitable, but they're more risky. They don't always work. Disruptions take more time, and sometimes disruptions, you don't get the fruit of it because you come up with the idea of the disruption, you start launching it, but the market becomes more mature and more profitable later down the road when you have more competitors, so everybody gains, not just you. So it's important to see the impact of those 2 ways of producing. Very quickly, here we have Sarah Blakely. She discovered this idea of making women underwear that will help ladies look more thin, if you want, more slim. So she came up with this range of underwear that once you wear it, you look like you lost weight. So she said, losing weight, too much work, losing weight, too expensive, too much effort. Women want to lose weight and they want to lose it in 2 minutes. And so she created the underwear. She had no money, she had no time, she had no experience. She didn't even know how to sew, but she bought herself a used sewing machine and she bought some material and started making the underwear and made one prototype, two prototypes, and eventually she started selling this by building a network and being able to speak to a big buyer. And this big buyer thought this was a great idea because women did want to use that product and there was no really anything good like this. Were there already underwear that you could put in order to look like you lost weight? Yes, this has existed for hundreds of years. It's not new. But what she did that was very different is she made the underwear good looking versus before the underwear were absolutely horrible. And so she started making underwear that would make you look slim and actually would be good looking. That was the real, just noticeable difference. So then she went in making many type of underwear, not just the original knickers. And she eventually also did the same thing for men. So she very much did new product development in adapting the product to the different market. The advantage of being the first one is you get to be recognized for this new innovation. You become the prototype for people to judge what's good and bad. You start building distribution, but the problem is you don't benefit from any of the marketing. Here's another underwear company I found was very interesting. It's from 20 to 21, 21% of consumers have started worrying about radiation. Consumers also worry about sun damage because of cancer, and consumers also worry about microbes and viruses. What would that have anything to do with underwear? Well, this made sense, maybe not to you, but it made sense to this company called Lambs. Lambs created underwear and clothing that you could wear and it would protect you from radiation, it would protect you from sun damage, and it would protect you from viruses. And so this company is advertising themselves, talking about immunity, better sleep, better skin, healthy aging, digestion, and all of this. Obviously, to me, this is like a big stretch, but it's if you tell the customers what they want to hear, and you come up with a product that gives a solution to a problem, you are in business. How do people buy product? Well, they don't all jump at the same time buying product. There's like a order, a sequence of people that buy the product. The first group of people are called the innovators. Then you have the early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. What's very important to see here is innovators are very important because they are the ones that initiate the business. But the innovators are not the most important. Most people think it's the innovators that you want to pursue, when in fact, the most important are the early adopters. The innovators are such a small percentage that you need them, but they are not the fire, they are the spark. So you don't start a fire with a spark. You need a spark. It's a requirement, but you need more than that. Is you need the first flame, and so it's the first flame the most important. It's these early adopters that is very important. So when you look at the graphic for a company, for a healthy company, is you think about the fact that you're going to have to constantly come up with products. So if you want, you have P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, 6, 7. These are products. So you start with the product and you think about the life cycle. So you don't want to launch too many products at the same time, but you want to have a sequence of products in different stages where you have one product which is in the creation stage, one product that is in the launch stage, one product which is in the growing stage, and having multiple products and in different stage allow your company to have a constant revenue that helps the company stay afloat. If you have too many products in one stage, your company is going to be unbalanced. So to understand this is you need those two slides, the slides of the product life cycle and the slide of the growth of the business, keeping a growing revenue. So the product life cycle is those 4 stages that you need to learn: introduction, growth, maturity, decline, which is the 4 stages that business go through. So if you look again, now this one, you understand that each one of these P went from a introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. But that's why you want to have multiple products, so that way you have a balance. Not too many products in the launch, not too many products in the growth, not too many products in the decline. So that way you can constantly be a four-legged dog, if you want, and not just unbalanced where you have too many declining or too many in the growth. Because what's the problem of having too many in the introduction? There's cost and revenue and profit associated with these. So in the introduction, you don't have much revenue, very little profit, and a lot of expenses. In the growth, you have even more expenses, but you start having a revenue, so it's offset. In the maturity, you don't have as many expenses, but you have a decreasing profit that appears in the maturity. And then in decline, you have a decreasing profit, decreasing amount of sales, decreasing amount of expenses at the same time. So you have to balance all of these different things. So it's just the common sense that tells you that you can't be coming up with a good song and thinking it's going to be fine. Is you have to constantly produce songs in order to have enough songs out, in order to have one successful, in order to use the resources created by that one, in order to fuel the next future work and creation that you're going to have to do. So why business fail? Business fail because there are too many players. It's very fragmented. Because the economy is going down, because the government is creating problems, because it's more expensive to develop than you thought, because you didn't have as much money in order to keep the distance, the long distance. You didn't have the financial stamina, because you didn't spend enough time developing the product, so your product was not finished, because you launched at the wrong time. You know, there's times to launch certain movies and certain entertainment and certain products, because your product has a much shorter life cycle. You thought it would be taking a while and stay in the maturity stage, the third stage, much longer than it did. Maybe you had competitors that came much earlier and with something much better than you anticipated. Maybe also because your organization doesn't have the leadership to support the risks. A lot of organizations are risk averse, and therefore they start freaking out before anything. Some products go through revival stages. So normally, the typical stage is introduction, growth, maturity, decline, phased out, disappearance. But that's not everything. There's products that are revival. You just redesign, we change the formula, change the packaging, change the image, and you can always keep growing. So how do you develop new products? You develop new products by having different team work on it. And there's two ways to work on it. Either you have let's say if there's 4 steps, it doesn't have to be 4 steps. The issue here is not if there's 3 steps or 20 steps, just for the sake of it, 4 steps. So you have 4 steps, and let's say you do the sequential, which is on the yellow side. So the sequential is what you're going to try to do is to have the engineer people be in charge of the step 1. Then you're going to have the accounting and finance in charge of the step 2. Then the production inside of the step 3, and then the marketing in charge of the step 4. The problem of having specialty expertise in each one of the steps is they're going to be thinking within their bias and stereotype. The best way normally to do it is the team-based, the simultaneous, which is the one on the right. Why? It's because that step is made of multiple, a variety of expertise. So in step 1, you're going to have 1 marketing, 1 finance, 1 production, 1 engineering. In step 2, same thing, 1 engineering, 1 finance, 1 marketing, 1 production. So you're going to have 1 of each. The advantage of having a team-based is, in fact, they're working through the sequence of creating the product, but they all come with a various perspectives in each one of the stages. The team-based will eventually make a better product, but it takes more time. The sequential, the one in yellow, if you have specialty people in different, only those specialty in each one of those stages, they will be much faster at solving their problem, but they won't have the breadth of the thinking of having multiple people in each one of the stages. So essentially, which one is better? I would say it's the one on the right is better, the pink and blue versus the yellow, but the one on the right takes more time, and you need to have the resources in order to have multiple people, because usually what happens is if you use the yellow is you do step one, if there's one person, one engineer, step two, one or two person, two accountants, and that, therefore it requires less people. So the bigger the business, the more you take the one on the right side. So now just to finish, what are the major steps? Because I was saying 1 to 4, but there's more than 4 really. There's the standard is 8. And so what are the 8 stages? The first stage is ID generation, if you want, brainstorming, coming up with as many ideas as possible. The second stage, ID screening, is reviewing these IDs and selecting the best IDs. Then the third stage, concept development, is coming up with these IDs together with different business proposals and even maybe testing them. Maybe you test them on a computer simulation or visual pictures or drawings. Then the marketing strategy is when you actually start talking about who's customers, how much we're going to sell it for, where are the customers, definition of the targets, and so forth. The business analysis is when you talk about the cost of manufacturing, the cost of distributing, the cost of promoting, and so forth. Then you create the product, manufacture the product, create a stock, an inventory, and then you test it. You test it in one store, you test it in one city, you test it in one state, you test it one day. You know, all of these are options. And then you see if you can make some tweaks, little tweaks. And then once you tested and you made the tweaks, then you go in a full sales, distribution, and commercialization. Here's a few products I want to see, because I think it's important to see that the customer is always right, and getting the customers to be curious and thinking outside the box is very good. So all I wanted is tea, but this is what I got. Is this tea? Kind of. It's green tea. It's more than green tea. It's matcha tea. But it's more than matcha green tea. It's with oat milk. So suddenly the customer becomes very sophisticated, if you want. And it's the marketer. Who made this atrocity? Was it the marketer or the customers? Did the customer thought of all of this? Dairy-free, non-GMO, fair trade, woman-funded, with reishi and maitake functional mushrooms. Customer can't think of all of this. So this was a marketing product. What do you mean? Well, the marketer thought of the next just noticeable difference. They keep adding one element, one element, one element, one element, one, right? And the more they add elements, the more they differentiate themselves from the competitors. But at the end, are all of these characteristics really adding to the value of the product? I'm not sure. So sometimes I think marketing, what did I tell you marketing is? If there was one word, what would you say marketing is since the beginning? It starts with an S.
Satisfaction.
Exactly, satisfaction. If there was one word that defined marketing, it would be satisfaction. But because we're getting towards the end, I want to bring the subject even to a higher level. I think marketing is about dissatisfaction. Marketing is about creating something better and telling the customers that what they have is not as good. You have 20 Hertz, 50 Hertz, 100 Hertz, 1,000 Hertz, right? I don't know if you remember, but in the 90s, you get a computer and your computer had 5 megabytes of storage, and that was good. Then you get floppy disk, and your floppy disk were at 1.2. Then they came with a CD, and they tell you it's 100 megabytes. And then they came with a external hard drive, and they tell you it's a teta. And so when you went back to the people and say, oh, wow, this is a teta, and this is 1 megabyte. There was a time, I remember, people didn't understand even what, because the thing went so fast that they couldn't translate what's a megabyte and what's a terabyte. Where does it fit? How many zeros? And so what I'm trying to say is technology change but I think it's the marketer that creates dissatisfaction. And that's just the competitiveness. The more you're in a competitive environment, the more you have to satisfy, dissatisfy, dissatisfy, satisfy, satisfy, dissatisfy. But the dissatisfaction is also part of what you need to do. So you can't be just a marketer thinking to succeed, I need to satisfy. Is you have to constantly even make it better than you did last time in order and tell them that what you gave them last time was really good, but now you have it even better than what they had. So they want to change, but you have to create a just noticeable difference enough so they want to change. So here's some eggs. We hear about eggs in the news all the time. What is going on? The price go up. Well, what about Simple Truth selling organic egg? So what is it? What does it say? It says on the top, it says organic egg. Okay, but no, don't buy organic egg. Buy natural cage-free organic egg. And then they come and say, no, buy organic egg, cage-free, and grain-fed. Why would you buy the organic egg if you can get the cage-free and the grain-fed? So you buy the cage-free and the grain-fed. But then they come up with even more. Is they tell you, tended by hand. So it's cage-free, grain-free, tended by hand. I'm going to buy that one. Oh, but no, buy that one is even better. It's small family farms. Oh, that's even better. Happy ants. Oh, they're happy. Ethical eggs. Forage outdoors, free foraging, year-round. So all of these are just noticeable difference that they tell the client. Imagine if you're the owner of this business. In the next few months, you're going to have to come up with another tagline, additional tagline that says that your product is better. And you have to constantly put more stuff on your box. So that way people see that they're getting more and more and more and more. Was it that way anyway from the beginning? Maybe it was. I mean, look, they're made with fresh air and sunshine. So you have like made with fresh air. The next time you say, and sunshine. I want to talk about pricing. And so pricing is important because that's how you're going to be making a profit. That's how you're going to be growing your business, and you need money. And that was one of the questions you had in order to succeed. So profit is important. When you're looking at your decision in terms of pricing, you have to look at your cost. And so there's two types of costs. There's the fixed cost and the variable cost. And the conjunction of the two makes your total cost. So that's pretty basic accounting, nothing fancy. So what's the experience curve? The experience curve is the more you do something, the better you become at it. Because you save time, because you don't have to learn. You get the experience of having done it before, and you can go straight to it by doing it more efficiently. What is the economies of scale? So it's another way to save money is you buy more. So the more paper you buy, the cheaper your packaging. If you buy 1,000 sheets, it's going to be more expensive than if you buy 1,000,000 sheets of paper. So experience curve is larger purchases make the cost of every unit cheaper. Economies of scales is if you renting a venue and you have 250 seats, the cost per seat maybe will be more than if you can try to make it 300 seats. The more seats in the room, the cheaper the ticket price, because you have more people in the room for the same cost of the venue. So that's the idea of the economy of scales. Then you have the concept of price elasticity with demand. And the idea is the more you want to reduce the price, the more people will want to buy the product. And so therefore you want to see the elasticity of demand with price. And so the more a small change of price, the more that means that the people are sensitive to the price. So you change the price by 10 cents, nothing happens. But if you change the price by 10 cents and it makes a big change, that means people are very sensitive to the change of price. So you can't change the price too much. It means the price is sort of very strict. So what are the methods in setting your price? So there's 4 main pricing methods. The simplest one, well, yeah, one of the 2 simplest one is cost-based. Cost-based means it's how much does it cost to make the product plus a profit margin. So you say, I want to make a 20%. And that's sort of what happened to Porsche. Porsche wants to make between 20 and 25% profit margin. And because of the EV and the increased cost, they're making less than 20. So they decided to let go the EV in part in order to increase the profit margin to start making over 20%. So that's a very simple method. it's not the best one because you don't take into consideration the demand and you don't take into consideration the competitors. So the next one is the break-even based. Break-even means that you're focusing on a specific return on investment. I'm not going to spend too much time on break-even now because I will in the next class. The break-even, just remember this, is the one that I will repeat and repeat and repeat in the next class, saying that's one that you really need to know, which means that you have a targeted profit, because usually you have an investor. Most likely, not most likely, 100% sure, in the next class, you will make a final presentation, which is the one with the biggest grade, the most difficult one in the next class, and you're pretending to speak to an investor. Therefore, you have to talk about the break-even base. The break-even base is that you're asking money for an investor, and you're telling the investor when they're going to get their return. And this return is based on a profit and a cost per product. And then you have to decide how many products you have to sell in order to reach the profit that you're trying to give back within the time period for the investors. This is what you see if you watch at a Shark Tank. You watch at 10 Shark Tank, you're going to have 9, maybe 10 of the 10 that will talk about break-even. It's the most common when you're talking with investors. The value-based is the most marketing-based. Value-based is how much is the value perceived in the eye of the consumers. So it's not how much does it cost you, it's not how much your return on investment, it's not how much the competitor sells the product, is what do people see it to be the value. And it's obviously very great, but sometimes the customer says that's a value, but eventually they don't spend that money because they also think about competitors. So that's why the final one is the competitor-based. And it's the simplest one, is what is the price of my competitor will be my price, or what's the price of the competitor minus 5%, minus 20%, and it will be my price. Now talking about the brand, the strategies. So these are the methods to set up your price, simple methods, but these are the strategies. So these are additional strategies that I'm giving you beside all the strategies that we have discussed, and they are inside the table where I do a summary of the strategies. So these are pricing strategies. So the two big one is scheming and penetration. Scheming pricing is when you try to sell the product at the highest price as possible. The highest value, the highest profit margin, the highest break-even, the highest competitor. So usually it's because you have an innovative product and you try to make the most money out of it. Your product is the only one, is unique, is the first one, it's the first color TV, it's the first phone that takes pictures. You're just leading and you can say, you know what, my price that I want, it will be the price they will pay because people are willing to buy this innovation because it's so good. Penetration pricing is the opposite. Is you think that you don't want too much to make money from every transaction. What you're trying to do is to increase the number of transactions. So you don't focus on the how much do I get every time I sell, but you focus on trying to sell as many as fast as possible. Penetration pricing, you could do it for an innovation, but really for an innovation where you have product leadership, you rather do skimming, but you could do penetration because here in that situation is you're trying to increase the market share. What you want to do is you want to be the most sold. Being the most sold in America gives you some serious potential in brand equity and all these different things because it's number one sold, and therefore it makes it very difficult for your competitor when you're on the number one sold. That gives you big kudos. Then the next one is looking at the pricing based on the product line. So, you know, you buy a product, but you buy it with little options, the least option as possible. So you buy this concert, and you buy the ticket for the seat that is super far away. You almost need to bring your binocular to see anything. It's going to be cheap, but without option. However, what you do is you buy your rent tickets for a balcony. But then for the balcony, you also get decoration on the balcony. You also get food on the balcony. And these options is where they make the most money. Maybe the money they make from selling the tickets on the balcony is a 25, 30% profit margin. But the profit margin for the food that they're going to bring to you is much higher. And so they make money from the options. The captive pricing will be when, in fact, they need to use certain things. So the typical example to remember for captive pricing are printers. When you buy a printer, you spend, this has happened to you, it has happened to everybody. You go buy a printer and you see that the printer is $100 and you go, oh my God, $100, that looks like a great printer. And in fact, it might be really a good printer, even for $150, it's still cheap. But the big issue here that everyone should look at is not so much the price of the printer, but the price of the, anyone can finish that sentence? Of the toner.
The ink. Toner.
Yeah, the ink, exactly. It's the price of the ink. That's the big problem. And so we, I guess, Andrew and I, at least, have experienced this. And then we start becoming smart, and then we pay attention to the ink, to the toner when we buy a printer, because that's called captive pricing, where in fact, they may even sell, I'm just being obnoxious, the printer for nothing. They make $1. I'm just obnoxiously saying that, $1, but they really don't make that much. But then they sell $60 the toner. And in fact, with the toner, this time they make $59. You know, it doesn't cost them very much to make the toner. So I'm being very eccentric with my number, but it's to show you that they are in the business to sell toner, not in the business to sell printers. And so they saw that. And so it would be the same, for example, someone selling a guitar, a very good guitar, but the chords are not that great. And therefore, most musicians will recognize that and say, you know, the guitar is so good, but I gotta really buy a better chord. And then they sell the chord, but the chord, they not too expensive, but that's where they make a big margin, is you replacing it with the chords that are a much higher quality chords, right? Or the skin on a drum or something like this. And so they do this all the time because they know that once you made the decision to buy that drum set or that guitar, it's not too complicated to get you to buy the chords, right? Versus the optional, for example, for a guitar will be the bag. But here's the same. You buy this guitar, you know, you spend $500 on a guitar. On the $500, they made $50. You don't know this, but that's the truth. They made $50. But then you're going to buy that $70 bag, and on the $70 bag, they also made $50. So that's kind of what's crazy, is they made as much on the bag at $70 than on the guitar at $400. And because they have a different profit margin, and they know this, and they want to use the option of the bag or the captive of the code in order to make the money. Companies do all this all the time. For example, when you buy a car, one thing that people don't know is most of the money they make is actually from the financing of the car, not from the service, not from selling the car, not from the options of the electric window and leather seats and special radio, but it's actually from the financing. The financing is actually the most interesting. Then there is the byproduct, is whatever you will be doing, there's a residual. So maybe the byproduct for like a musician would be like the merch, you know, or some of the things that you could be selling afterwards, some video, some behind the scene video that you will be selling somewhere of the concert. That's a byproduct. You could be making money from this. And then bonding is when you sell multiple products at the same time, bundled together. So it's like you don't buy one toothpaste, but you buy a toothpaste, a toothbrush, and a floss. And in fact, the toothpaste is, let's say, you know, $10. The toothbrush is $5. But then if you buy, and the floss is $5, so that should be $20. But in fact, if you buy the bundle, it's $16. So you'd be saving, but you will be buying what they want you to buy as a combination. You couldn't buy the exact toothbrush that you want, the exact toothpaste, the exact flosser. So you end up getting not exactly what you want, but at a better price, you'd be saving 20%, 30% by doing it this way. If you have never experienced that, just go to a place called Costco. And Costco is all about that. So, and finally, the competitor-based pricing is when you try to have a strategy that consists in just copying your competitors. Now I'm going to move into distribution, and in the situation of distribution, I want to talk about the fact that distribution is a real business. It's a business that is very different. It's a business that is very expensive because you may have the product, you have inventory, but you need intermediaries to get them to the consumers. So obviously we live in the era of Instagram and Facebook market and direct sales from your online Shopify websites and all that, where you could be the intermediary and save and not deal with any intermediaries. And that's great. But it's not always the case. You still need intermediaries most of the time because it's a very special job to be able to bring most services and products directly to the consumers. And so those intermediaries are going to be the ones sometimes that makes the biggest margin. It's oftentimes interesting to see that if you sell, I don't know, just a gizmo car, the manufacturer makes 20%, but the distributor will be making a larger percent. And so sometimes, and we see this all the time, business people don't want to be in manufacturing. Hence the reason why manufacturing has disappeared slowly but surely from America. And what has increased is services and distribution. Who's the richest man in the world? Amazon, right? And so now, in some way, you have Tesla, and we just discussed about that. So it's sort of a back to manufacturing, and maybe that's why it's exciting. And I think that's what Rod was saying. You may be right, you may be okay or not okay with Tesla, but at the end of the day, it's pretty remarkable having been done this and bringing back manufacturing to the USA. Nobody would have believed it. What are the tasks of the people that have to do with distribution? Is first, they inform the consumers, they promote to the consumers, they are the point of contact. So they don't have to, all of these people contact you all the time. They, so you save yourself from having to deal with all these consumers. They do matching. So the distributors try to make sure that your products get to the best distribution networks, which is you having to see which store, which mall is the best one, which online, which farmers market, whatever is the best one. They do that. That's a totally different job. The job of being the manufacturer and the job of being the distributor is totally different. They also negotiate. So you don't have to make, every time you negotiate, you lose money most of the time, because you have to sort of make it as a manufacturer, is not always, but you have to make consideration to reduce the price or increase the quantity. But if you do this all the time with every one of your consumers or your business to businesses, you lose money. So it's the distribution that deals with this in the business to business, and it's their job. Then they store the product. I mean, there's a cost in storing the product. Depending on what you're storing, it could be something very big and requires a lot of spaces. Also, they're going to be financing it, because before you make it, you may get money from them. So in a way, they are a little bit like a bank or like an investor. In a way, the fact that they made a purchase order, you could take this PO, this order, this first wire, and go to an investor, go to a banker, and get some money in advance, get some insurance or payment. So there is some financing, there is some insurance that you could use. They're also doing risk taking. Every time you sell a new product, not the consumer is going to be buying it, not always, but your distributors will have this sort of this requirement to buy, but also they would want to pay fair with you and start buying new products in order to push it outside. So distribution is about direct distribution or indirect distribution. But like I said, you could sell directly to the consumer, you could have multiple intermediaries. So what are the basic strategies of distribution? It's not complicated. I'm only going to quickly focus on this, is that you have three strategies. Intensive distribution, this one, which means you sell it everywhere. Selective distribution, which means that you sell it in specific places, not everywhere. So you could say 99%, 50%, and 10%. Exclusive distribution is 10%, means that you have one place, one place in LA, two places in LA, East LA, West LA, right? One place in Ventura County, one place in Orange County. Versus selective distribution is you're just going to sell it to all the Albertsons. So it's not everywhere, but all the Albertsons, still a lot of places. And intensive distribution is you're selling in Albertson, Ralph, Vons, Kroger, 7-Eleven. So that's the difference. It's everywhere, half of everywhere, or less than half, and just a few places. Now, there's a strategy that is very important to listen and understand, and it's a typical strategy that you have to learn as a postgraduate student, is the push and pull strategies. It's a strategy that you should know because it makes the difference. It's like, did you get a master? No, yes or no. If you haven't heard about this, that's kind of scary. But the idea here is push strategy is when you focus and incentivizing the network in order to sell the product. Pull strategy is when you focus and incentivizing the customer, who will indirectly incentivize the distribution network. So pull strategy is you say, you know what, it's so expensive to advertise that I'm not going to be able to advertise on the Super Bowl or billboards or magazines. So what I'm going to do is incentivize the wholesaler. So the wholesaler is the organization that buy for the purpose of selling, of reselling, who's going to incentivize the retailer, and the retailers are the organization that sells directly to the customers. So wholesalers tend to be B2B, retailers tends to be B2C. So if you incentivize each one of these people, you make less money, but you have a control of the incentives. Versus if you spend $100,000 on a billboard and radio and magazine ad, you don't really know how much that's going to directly generate. But it's easy for, so how does that materialize? You go to the wholesaler and you say, if you buy one truck, this is the price. If you buy two trucks, it's minus 20%. If they say no and buy one truck, did you lose money? No. If they say yes and buy two trucks, did you lose money? No, because I sold more. I just made a little bit less, but I sold much more. So then that distribution network is going to have more of your product. The more they have of your product, the more likely they're going to be pushing your product. And therefore, that's also how you grow, by having support from the trade, from the distribution network. Then, because of you give that incentive to the wholesaler, the incentive is going to have a extra fat that he can share with the retailer. And here again, it's going to do the same. If you buy one case, one box, it's this price. If you buy one layer of a pallet or a full pallet, it's another price. And then the retailer will have a product that they bought for the right price, much cheaper, and therefore they can incentivize, again, the customers by having two for the price of one or whatever it is. So that's the push. The push, everybody wins. You don't really lose. You just sell more, make a little bit less if you sell more. The pull strategy is very different, more risky, and you need usually to have more resources. Is you don't care of the wholesaler and the retailers. You ignore these intermediaries, and what you do is you make the customer your salesperson, if you want, your advocate, and you incentivize the customer to want to buy the product. You hook them up, and then they go and look for it everywhere. They Google search it, they go knock at the door, they walk into the store, and therefore the store eventually wants your product because they have to have it. The customer is coming. They don't want to, but they will because they know people are looking for it. Now, because of social media, this definition has slightly changed, because normally before social media, you would say big businesses do push and pull, small businesses do push because they can't afford the pull. But now with social media, you can incentivize people directly as a small business. It's becoming more tricky, more expensive, but it's still possible for small businesses to do that. All right. So now, with further along with the same concept is this concept of domination. What's the domination in the world? The world that we live in. We have the K-Den on one side, and we have the Universal Studio on the other side. Who would you think is winning? The Universal Studio. The distribution company are the one winning. They pick and choose. They can even take someone that is average and make it someone amazing. I mean, there's even a band, Milli Vanilli, it was called, some name like this. They won best album.
Vanilli.
Yeah, Milli Vanilli. They won best album, best singer. No, they didn't even sing. They didn't even sing. So you can imagine winning best singer in a year when you don't even sing. It's someone else singing. That shows you that if you're a big distribution company, you can do a lot. Anyway, so the world domination just for you is this kind of constant bargaining power that we're in. And unfortunately, the winner, more and more so, is Amazon, the distribution company, the Amazon of the world. And so what's the pros and what's the con? What's the side and the flip of the side? That's what I was discussing just before. So if you're the brand, if you're the manufacturer, you have control over the quality. You can use the better quality. You can make choices. You have your brand equity, your reputation. You have the profit making. You make some money. You can share this money. You can invest in your distribution network. And you have consumers that have brand loyalty. They like your brand and they come back and come back and come back. They love you. They're fans. So that's your bargaining power with the manufacturer. As a distributor, it's the location. People go to eBay. People go to Amazon. People go to Apple music stores and so forth. So they go to these places. And so if they go to these places, they own the customers and they have better access to them. They also sell a lot. You may be selling a lot, but they, as distributor, will be selling so many more. It's always amazing to hear the number of SKUs, number of items that a supermarket sells. It's like this supermarket, 35,000 items. This supermarket, 50,000 supermarket. So no manufacturer makes this many products. A manufacturer makes, I don't know, 30, 50, 100 different products. Maybe if you're in the fashion industry, but nobody makes 50,000 products. That's the job of the distributor. So what does the distributor do? They sell many different products, 50,000, in small volume. They have 20 of each. Versus a manufacturer, he's going to be making thousands of a few. So that's why they're gaining this power, is because they don't have too few different products. They have many different sorts in a small quantity, so they can attract more customers. That's why supermarket. You see, it's funny. I just remember when I did my bachelor, no, my master. I was in England, and when I was in England, they were talking about Tesco. So you don't know what Tesco is like. Vons. They were talking about Sainsbury and those supermarkets. And how did they start? Because there was someone that was selling fruits, someone that was selling vegetable, someone that was selling meat. And then there's someone that had a brilliant idea to make a store that sells vegetable, fruit, and meat. And it didn't have to be cheaper or more expensive or better fruits or better meat. You just had to put them in the same room. And eventually people save time by going to one places, getting 3 products versus going to 3 different places to get the product. So that's how the retailers started. And they became the Vons of the world and pavilions and all that. It's the convenience. So that convenience of the distributor is this concept of sales volume and volume of purchase from the manufacturer, because when they go see the manufacturer, they negotiate a big order, versus a consumer. If we talk about my cognac, what the consumer do is they buy 1 bottle. But one store, what do? Well, they buy 100 bottles from me. But what about a distributor? A distributor buys 5,000 bottles from me. So guess who I'm spending more time? The person that buys 5,000 bottles, the person that buys 50 bottles, or the person that buys 1 bottle? I don't deal with the person that buys 1 bottle because they go to the retailer or to an online website and they buy 1 bottle. I deal with the one that buys 5,000 bottles at once. So when I have that meeting that day, it's just pressure day for me because 5,000 bottles is about $300,000. So I'm talking about $300,000. I'm not talking about $40. So it is very important to see the manufacturer have this pressure from the distributor is they are big buyers. This B2B, big buying has a big impact on the bargaining power within the negotiation and discussion table. Consumer loyalty is the same thing. Now people are buying products that are private brands, they call the brand made by the distributor. So they buy the Costco brand, in a word. And so they have Costco tires, Costco shampoo, Costco toothpaste, what's this? Price Club toothpaste, Price Club shampoo, the same thing. And they trust it. The Safeway brand. And they think it's okay. The Trader Joe's tomato sauce. Trader Joe's tomato sauce. So people buy this because it's private label. It's not made by Trader Joe's. It's made by the same brand usually of tomato sauce that they have next to the Trader Joe's. So it's like if you have a Trader Joe's tomato sauce, the next brand next to it, which is Al Pacino Italian tomato sauce, that's the one that usually makes the Trader Joe's as well. And that's how they do business. They say, I'll buy your branded tomato sauce if you make my private label tomato sauce. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm going to buy someone else. Oh, okay, you're my friend, my best friend. I'll make your sauce, your private label sauce. Okay, so wholesalers, there's 3 types of wholesalers. There's the wholesalers who's just buying from all the manufacturers and creating inventory to then bulk break to the different retail stores, or maybe to other wholesalers, to smaller wholesalers. Then there's also the manufacturer that has wholesaling capacity. They manufacture and then they become the wholesaler, and then they sell through their second organization, which is wholesaling. You also have retailers that have wholesaling, so they go backwards. Is they have the retailing, and then they make so much money that they eventually become wholesalers, and that's It's Amazon. That's what they did. That's what they did now is they become wholesaler and retailer. And then you have the broker and agent. Broker and agent, to me, it's one of the best job. Why? Because you don't have to have any possession of any of the products. You just represent someone else. So you see this, for example, in real estate, you have to buy a house. No, you buy other people's houses and you just represent them. So you see this in sports, in so many different things. So not just to finish, I want to finish on the last P of promotion and tell you that in the P of promotion, you have advertising, which is to sell with the identified sponsors, sales promotion, which is that you're going to give discounts, personal selling, which means that you're going to create a specific offer for a specific person and you're going to communicate to them directly by knocking at their door, sending them an email, sending them a mail, or using artificial intelligence through social media and recognizing this person and giving them a special offer. Then you have direct marketing, which is creating that offer and contacting this person. But it can be done by a machine. So it's not totally personal selling with someone speaking. It's just a machine sales. And then you have public relations. Public relations is you creating content. You post the content, you're creating pictures, videos, you're creating banners and brochures, you're creating annual reports, you're creating trade show displays, and you go to the trade show, you're creating speech that you give to the various people that are going to be talking. That's what PR is trying to do. How do you measure the quality? So what are the 4 objectives of communication? Is inform, means you just let people know. Persuade is you tell them the benefit of buying and you want them to buy, you give them a discount. Compare is you talk about the different brands and say which one is the best. And remind, they bought before, but you want them to remember it. How do you evaluate the quality of your communication and the effectiveness of your advertising and promotion? Is one, you look at, do they remember the communication? That's one way to measure. It's not the best one because the best one is, did it generate sales? But generating sales is not easy. Measuring if people remember the ad is already one step. How do you work on your budget? Your budget is you look at what we can afford, kind of like Hayden. I can afford $5,000. It's my budget. Another one is percentage sales. I want to increase my sales by 10%. So then you look at your last budget and you increase it by 10%. Objective on task, it's the most complicated one, is you try to identify all the things you want to succeed. And then you come up with a marketing advertising plan in order to make it succeed. And then you budget all the different things you want to get done with all the different things you're going to have to do in order to get it done. And then you try to budget this. And then the competitive parity is you identify how much is your competitor selling, and therefore you will be doing the same amount of sales that they're doing. And I'm going to try just to finish with to self-promotion I've explained. So here, what is it that I didn't say? Yeah, so here, what is a copy strategy? A copy strategy is the term used in communication. When you a marketing report is called a marketing plan. An advertising report is also a copy strategy. So you should say, are you working on your copy strategy? That means, are you working on your advertising plan? But the word advertising plan is like the lame word, and you would want to use that in front of advertising people. You would want to talk about the copy strategy. So it's just a little things that I wanted to pass on. Let's look at a quick copy strategy here. There's 3 things that you need to focus on when you sell and advertise. Is the copy is focused on the message, centered on the product. So you talk mostly about the product, you talk mostly about the performance, the result of the product, or you talk about the universe, the environment of the product. Let's look at 3 examples. So I have 3 here, but I have a 4th one. So this one, and they're all about Coca-Cola. So we see the variation with the same category. This Coca-Cola, is it looking at the universe, who's using it, where it's used? Is it looking at the performance, if you drink it, or drinking it, what does it do, the result? Or does it look at the product and just the product? Here,
performance?
It doesn't look at the performance and what the product does. It just shows the bottle, and it just shows the name and the campaign, the Instagram campaign, which was Cherry Coke. And then there was a campaign talking about the different name that they gave on the bottle, and you could buy bottles with different names. And that was sort of the gig of having your bottle with your name, and people love that. So it's just the product. It doesn't tell you that you're going to have energy, that you're going to wake up, that you're going to feel good, that you're going to be happy, that you're going to want to cuddle somebody. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't talk about who's buying it. You don't see a pretty girl, a old person, someone rich, someone poor, someone famous. There's no universe. So it's just the product. What about the next one? What does it focus on? Does it show the product? Does it show the performance, where it's used? Does it, no, the result of using it? Or does it show the universe where it's used, who's using it, what happens, the ambience? In that situation, you do see a little bit of the product. You can recognize it's a bottle, but most of what you see is this sky. You feel like it's a warm, you feel like it's a party. It says actually the party starts here, and you just see the sun setting and sort of a mood. If it's a mood, it's a universe. Not all ads are 100% product, 100% universe, 100%. Sometimes there is a bit of both. So in that situation, I would say there's 15% products, 85% universe. Versus that one, it's pretty much 100% product. No, what about this one? So this one is a French ad for Coca-Cola, and it says "Savoure l'instant." So it's like enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment. Does it show the product? Well, you do see the product. Does it show the performance? You know, the result of using the product. Does it show the universe? So the product is minimal. Maybe it shows somewhat the universe, you know, a girl. But obviously, this one has sort of a sexual subliminal message, I would say. But that's typical of French commercial. Maybe in America, they would not do that. So I apologize. I brought the American version since maybe the French version didn't make sense. So the American version, this one, what does it show? The pose that refreshes and cools. So it tells you it's a performance. Is you're going to drink it and feel cool and refreshed, and it's a pose, and all things become wonderful with this. All right. So those three characteristics are very important: performance, product, universe. It's kind of very basic, but it's a really good way to look at advertising and sort of decompose them.